Hi guys, welcome to the Knitting Expat Podcast. My name is Mina and I'll be your host today. I'm coming to you from my home in London, and yeah, I live here at the moment with my husband, my daughter Layla, and we're actually staying at my parents' house, so obviously we live with them as well. Yeah, so welcome. This is going to be another sort of off-the-cuff chatty video. I wasn't planning on recording today, but then I mean, I had actually planned on recording earlier this week, but it just didn't work out. And yeah, so Layla actually went down to bed a little bit earlier than usual today. We had a long day out, but I'll get to that later. And everyone else is out of the house today, this evening, at least for the next couple of hours before anyone gets home. So I thought I would take the opportunity and just record a quick little chatty podcast episode for you guys. I don't have any official show notes written up, but there isn't a whole lot to go over knitting wise, so I'm going to try and do show notes for this episode, and if I don't, then I'm sorry. And if you do have any questions about anything that I've shown, if there aren't show notes, then by all means send me a message or leave me a comment and I'll happily answer that for you. You know what, to be honest, there probably won't be show notes, so just ask me if you have any questions. And yeah, so I've got a few finished objects to talk about. I don't actually have my work in progress with me, it's downstairs, so I'm actually recording this in my parents' bedroom because they get the best light at this time of the day. It's just gone 7 PM and it's still pretty bright out, which is great, but I am in my parents' room. So yeah, so I can't go get it now. My knee hurts quite a lot right now, so getting up and getting down is a bit difficult. More about that later as well, if I remember. But I have some sock stories to tell you, and yeah, there's a couple of acquisitions, so that's about it, and we'll just jump right in. So I should probably tell you where you can find me. That would be good, wouldn't it? You can find me online as Knitting Expat on Instagram, Mina Phillip on Ravelry. You can find the podcast group on Ravelry as the Knitting Expat Podcast group, and you can find my patterns in my Ravelry shop, and under Knitting Expat Designs. And you can find, what else can you find on Ravelry or anywhere else? Show notes. That'd be it. Show notes you can find at knittingexpat.wordpress.com. Words are all like blending into one today. But yes, so you can find links to all of that, everything I've just mentioned, below this video on YouTube, and there will be an episode thread for this on the Ravelry page. There we go. On the Ravelry group, and you can find all the links there as well as in the show notes. What else did I say administration wise? Today is Saturday, April the 14th, and yeah, it's been a long day. I'm just trying to remember everything. Okay, let's just jump in with finished objects, shall we? First up, this pair of socks. This is by this is a pair of Opal. It's a pair of socks knit out of Opal yarn. Let me just check my notes. I do have notes from last time, and I think that this was a, yeah, it's just in a rainbow colourway. I forgot to write down the colourway number. But if you really want to know, by all means ask, and I will try and find the tag somewhere if I still have it. But this was sent to me by a viewer a few years back, when we were still living in Bahrain. And yeah, so I decided to knit these up. I was originally going to do them as gifts, but I really like them, so I'm keeping these ones for me. And yeah, I really love the rainbow sort of colour scheme with that one. I didn't bother doing contrasting heels to maintain the colour, but they are matching, so there's that, which is fine. I'm not super fussed about stuff like that, but if I can, I do match them. I don't go through huge lengths to try and make sure they match, but if it's not going to be too complicated, I'll do it. As you can see with the toes, one went into the white and one didn't, so the gauge was ever so slightly off, but not by much. So yeah, that's one pair of socks done, and these are on 2.25mm needles, US ones. I think these were knit with high sharps. I did actually finish another pair of socks out of some Wool and Vine yarns in the Mooncusser colourway on her footsie base, which is a BFL nylon. But those are currently soaking in the sink because I finished them yesterday, and I just put them to soak today after I put Layla down, and then I decided to record the podcast because that's clever. But I wouldn't have been able to show you those socks in great detail anyway, because they are part of one of the sock clubs that I'm doing this year. So I will show you that next time I record, and obviously I won't show you the actual pattern side, but I'll show you how the yarn knits up. It's really, really lovely yarn. If you can ever, I know Wool and Vine yarns is quite hard to get hold of, but if you can ever get hold of a skein, then yeah, really enjoy working with it because it's a lot of fun. My next two finished objects are both hats. These are going to be part of the New York hat collection that I have talked about in the past. But I'm using all yarns from Green Mountain Spinnery. So I'm using a mixture, sorry, I'm using a mixture of their worsted weight, the weekend wool, and their DK weight, which is the music, as in, and the U is the EWE, so music base. They're both 100% American wool. And yeah, so I'll talk about this one first. So this is the worsted weight one, and this is in deep teal, I think, or deep lake, in the deep lake colorway. And this is the Avenues hat. I'm not sure if you can see, there you go, you can see the texture there. And it's just a really fun slip stitch texture, but because it slip stitches, it does sort of draw the fabric up a little bit, so you can, as you can see, the back of the hat is slightly lower than the front, slightly longer. It's not because of short rows, it's just because of the way this pattern is worked. And it's why the pattern is only worked as a panel on this hat rather than all the way around. And this is what it looks like on. This is, yeah, good fit, nice and snug. Not too slouchy on this one. This one's more of a beanie style, and the crown decreases. If you can excuse the hat head. I can show you, it's kind of like a gathered crown, which is quite nice. And yeah, so that worked out quite nicely. And the other one, this is going to be the Grand Central hat, and this uses the stitch pattern from the Grand Central socks, but sets it up differently, so you get a completely different effect. And so I've done this as a spiral, so it spirals round. And I'll show you what this one looks like. Again, nice cozy fit. This one's a little bit slouchier at the top, but obviously the length is pretty customizable, and you can do that as long or as short as you want. There we go. So those are the two hats. The worsted weight was knit on a 3.75 and 4.5mm, I want to say. Yes, 4.5mm, so that's a US 5 and US 7. And then the DK weight one, oh, so I didn't actually say this is, the colorway is evergreen for this one. And the needles I used are 3.5 and 4mm, so that's US 4 and 6. So the smaller being for the brim and the larger size being for the rest of the hat. And yeah, so the only other work in progress that I don't have here to show you, any other thing, is another pair of vanilla socks that I'm just working on. I just sort of cast them on to have for card knitting last weekend when we were going somewhere. So those haven't had a whole lot of work. I mean, I'm like halfway down the leg and that's it. So it's just a vanilla sock. I'll show you those next time. And that's it right now. I don't have anything else on the needles. Like I said, I finished the Wool and Vine yarns socks last night, and I really haven't had any time to knit today because I've been out all day. Honestly, these days my knitting time is so limited. I'm still surprised how much I managed to get through, but I pretty much only get to knit during the day up to anywhere from like 1 to 2 hours during the day when Layla has her long nap, depending how long that nap ends up being, and then maybe a couple of hours in the evenings as well, just depending how late we have dinner and things like that. So again, I might get another 2 to 3 hours in the evenings. So really it's only at best 5 hours a day, I think. I don't even think it's that much on most days, but yeah, that's just the way life is right now, and that is fine. Layla's super active, so it does take up a lot of energy keeping up with her, and I just don't bother pulling out my knitting when she's around, to be honest, right now, just because she's all over it. She wants nothing to do with me, and then my knitting comes out and immediately she's like, oh, shiny, I want to play with that. So I just don't even bother right now. What was it? What else did I want to say? Okay, so we will move on to acquisitions. I haven't fully, sorry, before we move on to acquisitions, I have a few design projects that are going to be starting soon, and it's kind of why I've held off casting on stuff, because I'm expecting some things to come in the mail, and we're going to have a few things happening or starting to happen from about next week. I don't really want to talk about it yet because it hasn't happened, and it's nothing big, or I mean, no, not really, it's nothing huge or anything dramatic or anything like that, but it should help me out a lot. So fingers crossed, if that goes well, then obviously I'll tell you guys about it next time I record something. I just don't really want to jinx it by saying anything now, in case it doesn't work out. Anyway, being cryptic, I'll move on to acquisitions. I'm not even sure if I finished explaining what I started to explain. I really shouldn't have recorded today. This is terrible. This is going so badly. What I was trying to say was I haven't really started casting on anything new because I'm expecting some yarn to come in for some design projects. So I have held off casting on anything so that I have the brain space to work on the stuff that's coming. I think that's what I was trying to say. I may cast on one more hat because it's going to be a little while before the yarn gets here. But we'll see. Anyway, acquisitions, finally. Most of you, if you've been watching for more than a couple of weeks, I guess, maybe, or you've at least watched the last video I posted, you'll know that I went to Paris recently for Easter weekend. Perry surprised me by booking us a family trip to Paris as a Mother's Day gift for me, kind of like for us, I guess, as well. And some people have commented about that being like quite an extravagant gift, or like whatever, or like really special, and that he's got a lot to live up to next year. Actually, the reason why it was he went all out this time around was because last year he actually didn't do anything for Mother's Day, and I was really upset because it was my first Mother's Day and he hadn't done anything. And I don't think he fully realised that it was such a big deal to me, but it was. I don't really mind. I don't need Mother's Day to be a big deal like every year. But I kind of felt like my first Mother's Day was a big deal, and the fact that he didn't realise that was surprising, because you'd have thought he'd have known that. Anyway, we went to Paris, and of course a trip to Paris as a knitter is not complete without a visit to La Bien-Aimée. And we popped by one day in the afternoon and I picked up these two skeins, these two beautiful skeins, very much my comfort zone in terms of colours. There were loads and loads of beautiful colours to pick from, and loads of beautiful bases. The thing is, I don't really need yarn right now in my life. I have more than enough yarn between what I have with me in the UK and what I have back in New York. Most of the work I do is design work, so generally I get sent yarn as yarn support for design projects. So yeah, in terms of like, and my personal stash is already well stocked, so I don't feel the need to buy a lot of yarn. But I've never had any yarn from La Bien-Aimée, so I really wanted to pick up some. So, and like I said, because I didn't want to just pick up any old skein just because I like the colours, I wanted to pick something with a purpose in mind and something that I knew what it was going to be. And so these two, I should probably tell you, are both on the DK base, the Merino DK, 230 meters or 252 yards per 115 grams. So they're quite sizable skeins. And the colour of the yellow one it's Yellow Brick Road Graffiti, because I guess it's got the speckles on it, so it's not a solid yellow or tonal yellow. And then this one is called Patagonia, which is really beautiful, grey base with browns and greens in it. And what this is going to be a striped jumper for Layla for next winter, because she's almost outgrown most of her knitwear for like this age range. I have the Double Dutch cardigan. That's the little cabled cardigan that I knit for her. It's actually in the 2 to 4 year size, so it's going to fit her for next winter. But that pattern's now released. I forgot to mention that before, but that pattern is now released on Ravelry as well, if you'd like to purchase that. And there is a coupon code, Double Dutch, all one word, all lowercase, and that will get you 20% off the pattern price. So yeah, so this is going to be another probably pullover, maybe a cardigan. I'll wait and see nearer the time, but this is going to be knitwear for Layla. I might use the mix and match pattern for children, the children's one, to knit her just a plain stockinette version but striped of this. I do feel like this year, after obviously having had Layla, Everyone used to always say that cardigans are really practical with babies because you don't have to worry about stuff going over their head. But I didn't actually find that ever to be an issue with Layla, that it was just quite easy to get stuff over her head. And actually I found pullovers ended up being more practical than cardigans because, especially right now, she is obsessed with buttons. Like, she's constantly trying to put buttons in her mouth, like on her knitwear and on her clothes in general. If there's a button on the front, she wants to chew on it. So I find it's actually probably more dangerous having garments with buttons on them for her at this age, just because there's always the risk that she could get one off and choke on it or chew, like, without me realizing. So pullovers are definitely more practical, I feel, right now at this age. So I'm not sure, I might wait a little while and decide when she's a little bit older before I knit it, to see what that ends up becoming, a cardigan or a pullover. And the next work in progress, oh geez, really should stop recording this and do this another time, but let's just push through. My next acquisition was a surprise gift. It was so sweet. My friend Jo, who I've mentioned many times before on the podcast, she was lucky enough to be able to go to Edinburgh Yarn Festival this year. And there again, if you've been watching for a while, you'll know that I wasn't able to go this year for a number of reasons, mainly because it was I wasn't sure if we were going to be here originally, and then by the time that I knew we were going to be here, it was going to be too short notice, and there was just a lot going on for us in March, and it just wasn't practical to organise to go. But Jo was so sweet, and she picked up a few bits for me and sent them along, and I literally had no idea until the package arrived, and it was such a sweet surprise. So she picked up Edinburgh Yarn Festival project bag, this little drawstring bag, which is really cute and great for socks, and a copy of Shetland Wool Week, the free pattern that comes every year, or they do every year for Edinburgh Yarn Festivals. This really beautiful colourwork hat. What's it called? The Merry Dancers Tory. Merry Dancers Tory is a knitted hat, and yeah, so that's the pattern. And she also got me an enamel pin, the Edinburgh Yarn Festival logo, the ram with the rainbow horn, which was really beautiful as well. And I saw a few people who had this, and I will admit I was a little bit jealous. But so now I have one, and that's really sweet. So thank you so much, Jo. I really appreciated that. And hopefully we'll get to catch up sometime soon if you're in London. But yeah, so on to some sock stories. I think the last time I recorded a podcast, I talked about my mistletoe kisses socks, which one half ended up in the wrong wash by mistake, and it got washed at 90 degrees centigrade, which is something like 194 Fahrenheit. I think that's correct. I looked it up a while ago, and it accidentally went in with a white towel wash, which my mum was doing, and it yeah, like I said, she washes, it's only the white towels that ever get washed at that temperature because it pretty much ruins anything else. And yeah, so this is what they look like. So this is the one that didn't get thrown in the wash, and this is what that one turned out like. Completely bleached it, essentially. I don't think there was any bleach in the wash. I think it was just the extreme temperature that washed the colour out, and it did turn all the whites pink. So from the reds, I guess, that were in it. But what amazed me more than anything else was the fact that the yarn didn't felt at all. Like, it is perfect stitch definition. Like, not a single smidge of felting in that one bit. So this is a 75-25 superwash merino nylon blend. The yarn is by Turtle Pearl Yarns, and it's the Mistletoe Kisses colourway. I have like no issues with the fact that this one faded, because I would never have expected anything to survive that wash in terms of knitwear. I'm just surprised it's not felted more than anything else, and I have worn these a couple of times since it's happened, and they wear fine. So that's sock story number one. I'm pretty sure I mentioned this on the last podcast, I just don't think I had these clean to show you. So so yeah, that happened. And the other thing that happened, which kind of not surprising considering how much he's been wearing them, my brother has pretty much worn through his socks that I knit him. These are some of the first socks I knit my brother. So I knit these socks for him, I'll show them to you, out of hedgehog fibres. So this is 90% superwash merino, 10% nylon. And this was in the colour, I think it was called Poison. think that's what it's called. Why is it not focusing? There we go. A really beautiful colourway. And he absolutely loves these socks. He loves the fit of them. I did a bit of slip stitch detail on the back of the leg before doing the fishnets kiss heels. I didn't do a heel flap or anything. It was just a bit of slip stitching on the back, so it really hugs the back of his foot, and he loves the fit of that. I need to do that on more of his socks, and probably on my dad's socks as well, to be honest, because it really helps hug the back of his foot. And my mum was saying these are the only socks of his that she hand washes. She's never machine washed these, so this is not a durability in terms of machine wash type scenario. But this is what the bottom of his sock looks like. He's quite literally worn it out. You see that? It's literally hanging on by threads right now. This is about as threadbare as you can get on the ball of the foot, and it's the same on the other one. Crazy, absolute craziness. So I was just telling him, you could throw them away and I'll make you another pair. Not a big deal, you have plenty of socks. But he really loves how these fit. So yeah, like I'm saying, these have been hand washed the whole time. I know hedgehog fibers is they only have 10% nylon in the socks, which some people say isn't enough, but in fairness, I've knit my brother 100% superwash merino socks, and those have not worn out the way these have. I think it's more to do with the fact that he's worn them so much. He also really likes it because it's quite a hedgehog fibers is quite a thin yarn, and he definitely prefers the thinner fingering weight yarn socks, if for socks, than the thicker ones. I think they just fit better in his shoes, and they're obviously not as thick, so they're not as hot, I guess. But yeah, so that's the story of my brother's rather worn through pair of hedgehog fiber socks. So there's that, well loved. And yeah, that's pretty much it in terms of knitting content. Everything else is just a bit of chatter. So what else have we been up to? Today was a really busy day. I went into central London with Layla. We went into Covent Garden, met up with some of my friends for I guess brunch, and so that was nice. That was fun to hang out with them, and then we went and wandered around Covent Garden afterwards for a while, and they played with Layla, and we just had a nice chat. It was just really nice to hang out with them for a couple of hours on a Saturday morning, and then we came home and we spent a lot of time in the garden. The weather's been so lovely today, so lovely. So we spent quite a bit of time outside in the garden. Layla played, she had some snacks outside, and then my dad had to leave. My mum and my brother have been out all day. One of my cousins, his daughter's visiting for a week this week, and she and my brother are quite close in age, so they get on really well. And so they went out today, all the three of them, and they're actually on their way home now, so they'll be home in about an hour, I think. So I've got a bit of time, and yeah, so it's just been me and Layla this evening. My dad, like I said, he had to go out earlier, so just the two of us for the rest of the evening, and she's now asleep, so it's just me. And so yeah, it was a very lovely day, just a bit exhausting, a bit tiring. I realised earlier as well, this is the first time I took Layla out into London on my own, which is fine and not really a big deal, but my knee's been particularly bad lately, and I haven't mentioned this yet, but so on Mother's Day, like British Mother's Day, I went out with my mum and my brother. We went to Shoreditch for the day, and it was lovely, but it was a lot of walking, and probably a lot more walking than I've done recently, and it seemed to have agitated my knee a little bit. And then over the last few weeks, it's just been progressively getting a bit worse. And then we did a lot of walking in Paris, and it just got really bad after Paris. And I went and saw a doctor about it. Nothing really came of that. And then the last couple of days, it's been getting even worse, even worse than that. To the point where now today, after I went out to Covent Garden and didn't do a whole ton of walking, honestly, really didn't walk that much, not compared to what I normally would have done. Then on the way home, it was really sore, really sore, and even now, like, just walking really hurts. I'm pretty much limping at the moment. It's pretty bad. I do have an appointment to see a doctor next week, so hopefully that will get sorted soon. I'm not really sure what this is about. I don't even know if this is just something that needs some physio, or if it's something more serious. There is a history of knee problems in my family on my dad's side. My dad's had keyhole surgery on both of his knees, and I'm pretty sure my grandmother has some knee problems as well. So this isn't a this is why I'm not sure if this is just a physio thing or if it's something more serious, because it is quite painful now. So yeah, so whilst looking after Layla on my own and taking her out for the day isn't such a big deal usually. I mean, it is tiring, but it's usually fine and I can usually manage that without any problems. Today was particularly difficult just because of my knee being the way it is, and it's just been a bit more difficult for me to get about. And Layla obviously is a lot more physically active, so I have to try and keep up with her, which just adds to that. That's the other thing as well. Like before I'd had Layla, if my knee was acting up or anything was acting up, I would just take the time and rest. But I don't have that luxury of just being able to rest and ice it and just sit down and put my foot up and relax and, you know, let it heal. I can't do that with a 1-year-old running around. That's just not an option. So yeah, and Perry's away right now as well, so that's the other thing I should have mentioned. He left last week on Tuesday, and he gets back on Thursday. I think Thursday evening he gets home, but he's back in New York for this week for some work stuff. So he's back with the boys, he's back with our cats, and they're doing really well. I know I get questions about them all the time, but I thought I'd give you guys a quick little update. They are doing great. We were really lucky actually. One of my friends actually was pretty much living in our apartment for most of the month of March, and so they had company for most of the time, which was really nice. And then, like I said, we do have a really lovely pet sitter who takes really great care of them, and we get daily updates from her whenever she's looking after them. So we have no concerns about their care, and they seem to be doing perfectly fine, and they're appreciating having Perry back, I think. What else did we get up to? I don't think there's a whole lot else to update you guys on, to be honest. That's pretty much it. We do have a bunch of knit-alongs running in the group right now. Like I mentioned, we have the sock clubs that I'm doing this year. There are 2 sock clubs. There's more of a beginner sock club and a more intermediate level sock club. And there is the mix and match cardigan knit along, which is going on right now. And then there's also the changes shawl knit along, which is also going on right now as well. So those are all the current knit alongs. And I did announce prize winners for the sock club drawings that happened at the end of March, and I think I redrew a prize at the end of April. I think everyone's actually, sorry, I redrew a prize for the end of February. Everyone's gotten in touch with me except for the person I redrew for the Wanderlust Sock Club end of February prize winner. So if you haven't watched the video that I posted with the prize winners, please go ahead and do that so I can get that prize out to you. And finally, what am I wearing? I am wearing my Parisian Dreams pullover, which is currently in testing right now, so hopefully this will be released pretty soon. I've given my testers 5 weeks because I felt like that was fair, and it's still a pretty short time frame for a pullover for a lot of people, but I wanted to get this pattern out as soon as I can, so that should be out sometime in mid-May. And I think that's pretty much it, to be honest. I don't have a whole lot else to say. Like I said, it was a pretty just chatty, off the cuff kind of episode. And yeah, hopefully I'll be back soon. We'll see. Probably won't have time to do a podcast next week, but fingers crossed the week after I'll be able to have a little time to sit down and chat with you guys. Alright, take care. Thank you for joining me today. I am sorry this has been so rambly, but I hope you enjoyed it anyway, and I will speak to you guys soon. Alright, take care. Bye.